massive Spurs trade in the future, there is a report that came out linking a young superstar to the San Antonio Spurs. We break down what this would mean for the San Antonio Spurs and how this deal would get done here on Spurs Digest with your host, Keenan Warner. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure every Spurs moment is your moment by taking a spur of the moment, hitting that subscribe button. Let's get right into it. The Spurs are reportedly exploring the Brandon Ingram trade market as the New Orleans Pelicans shop him before his contract expires next summer and they won't be able to afford him. So the New Orleans Pelicans are in win now mode. They just got to the play-in. Zion had 40 in the game before he got injured. This was against the Los Angeles Lakers. They had a good chance of winning that game. And if Zion doesn't get injured, they could be the 7th seed. They would have played Denver. They still made the playoffs, and they made it tough on the Oklahoma City Thunder, the young Oklahoma City Thunder, who have gotten much better this offseason. Additions of Alex Caruso. They've added depth, and they've added veteran leadership to that roster that's already been growing and progressing. And obviously Shea, we just saw him on the Olympic stage. Even though Canada didn't have the outcome they wanted to, he played phenomenally. But the New Orleans Pelicans, Zion Williamson, they let Jonas Valanciunas go. But they did get DeJounte Murray in a big trade. So you've got CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, Zion Williamson. Right now you have Brandon Ingram there. You've got Trey Murphy. You've got Jose Alvarado. The thing that the Spurs have, which the Pelicans don't, some bigs we could get rid of. So the trade proposal was Brandon Ingram to the Spurs for Keldon Johnson, Zach Collins, and first round picks, that Atlanta 2027 pick. If it's not a protected pick, there's no protections on that pick unless the Spurs would have put them there. That Atlanta pick is a massively, massively important pick. That pick could be a top 5 pick, almost guaranteed with the way Atlanta is moving forward. They might not even have Trae Young by that point. We don't know what Atlanta's future is going to be. They have young talent, but they don't look like they're going anywhere at all. So we'll see that 2028 Spurs pick. That shouldn't be anything good by that point. Wemby is going to be preparing for his second Olympic run, and he's going to already be preparing for a championship. So that's not to be worried about. But Brandon Ingram adding to the San Antonio Spurs. What does that bring to the San Antonio Spurs roster? Well, that brings a guy who, when everything breaks down, he can go get his own basket. He can get it in the mid-range. He can post up. He can step out and hit some threes, especially when he's cooking. He can hit pretty consistently from the three-point line. He's 6'8", 6'9", long arms, can defend on the other end, which is what would be great addition with Victor Wembanyama, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sochan. Obviously, they got rid of Zach Collins in that trade, but you still have young depth, and you have the ability to go get more pieces. And the thing with Brandon Ingram is the Spurs do not have to worry about cap space. Chris Paul's only on a 1-year deal. That's only about $11 million anyways. Devin Vassell's the only guy making true money. Obviously, Victor Wembanyama, the second he's eligible for an extension, he's going to get the max extension because he's already that great of a player. But otherwise, they don't have anyone on the books that's really costing them money. They have so much cap space. And with that cap space, you can go out and get a max player and still be under the second apron, still be under the massive luxury tax, so you can go get veteran assets to go along with these players. And if you add a superstar like Brandon Ingram, you already have a superstar in Victor Wembanyama, you have Chris Paul, who is a leader of all leaders. You've got Devin Vassell, a young rising guard in the league. You've got Jeremy Sochan now able to play in his spot. You've got a guy who is smart, who can play defense offensively, knows what he needs to do. He can stretch out and hit a three if need be, but now he can really just be that athletic guy that he is, become kind of what Aaron Gordon was and is for the Denver Nuggets. We saw Aaron Gordon in Orlando, a guy who, high talent. They tried to put him as a primary ball handler. They tried to put him as a guy who you run the offense through. And he found himself as a rim guy, a rim runner, put him in the dunker spot, so he's able to use his athleticism there. And a guy who played great defense, and he was pivotal. He was extremely pivotal in the Nuggets championship run, and he was pivotal last year in that 7-game series against the Timberwolves and against the Lakers when they beat the Lakers in 5. So get him into that Aaron Gordon style of role to where he can use his athleticism and then focus defensively, and then he can contribute when he needs to contribute. When he has a mismatch, he can go exploit that mismatch. But Brandon Ingram to the San Antonio Spurs, what we'd be getting in Brandon Ingram, this is a guy who put up about 21 points a game last year, 5 rebounds, close to 6 assists, shot 35% from 3. He's efficient from the floor, 49%. Obviously, and he was getting these buckets with CJ McCollum, with Zion doing his thing as well. So he was able to get into his spots easily enough. But when you have a guy like the 7'4" alien, of course you're going to be able to get into those spots as well. You have Chris Paul here right now, and then you have a great coach like Gregg Popovich who can put him in the best spots for him to succeed. Brandon Ingram makes this team easily top 4. Easily top 4 because you've got your first superstar, you've got a secondary star, and then from there you've got role players and you've got pieces that's going about 10 deep. You've got a roster that's perfectly constructed around the young superstar that you had. You add Brandon Ingram to that, they can compete with anybody in the Western Conference because they can play defense with anybody in the Western Conference, and they have multiple people who late in game can go get their own bucket, but they also have a guy who can work within the confinements of their offense. Brandon Ingram to the San Antonio Spurs makes sense on all parties. The Pelicans need big depth. The Pelicans need future depth when they can pair with Zion Williamson. They can pair CJ McCollum is going to be in his older years, but then you already have DeJounte Murray. So you have 2 young pieces there. You can develop in the draft, get another piece, move forward, and you can get something special there. They can't pay Brandon Ingram, so it's in their best interest to move off of him. The San Antonio Spurs can pay Brandon Ingram. They need that position. That's a position of need for them. That wing that can go attack the basket, go get his own shot to go along with Devin Vassell to help out Victor Wembanyama. It's a perfect trade on both ends. This would be great for both teams, but especially for the San Antonio Spurs. This would truly make them one of the top 4 contenders in the NBA. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on Brandon Ingram coming to the San Antonio Spurs. Do you believe it's going to happen? Do you believe Brandon Ingram even gets traded this season? I mean, off season still, right before training camp, or maybe even mid-season. What do you think's going to happen with Brandon Ingram? Do you think he'd be a great fit for the San Antonio Spurs? I think he would be a phenomenal fit. But this was Spurs Digest with Keenan Warner. I appreciate all of you guys, and I'll see you soon.